Hello. I thought I'd talk once more about Enlightenment. Enlightenment Revisited. I've had one or two requests for talking a bit more about Enlightenment, so it's taken a while for this episode to gestate, but here it is. I may hesitate and be a bit slow because, well, I don't work to a script for a start, and these are concepts which people kind of find difficult. Obviously, we go for years without really any clue what enlightenment is. We know it's around, but what is it that people are talking about? And a lot of the books and talks are really a bit obscure. So I try to clarify it, and I'll try and clarify it today. Again, I only make these videos when I have some maybe slightly new perspective, so I want to really focus in on it today and see if we can make it as clear as I can at the moment. Fundamentally, if my understanding is correct, enlightenment is about being what you really are. So, not being inauthentic. And the main driver of inauthenticity in humans seems to be the verbal mind. The little berating chatter that goes on in our heads, right? And in fact, this is why meditation is such a useful technique, because it's about silencing, or at least sidelining, the verbal mind, getting it distracted with a mantra, or at least even taking your attention off it altogether as much as is possible for a time, because the verbal mind is the big distraction, really. You can have a musical mind which also distracts and so on, but it doesn't really stop you being inauthentic in the way that the verbal mind does, because the verbal mind, our inner dialogue, is always trying to get us to be something, to buy a story. We're great, we're fantastic, we're a genius, we're a loser, we're a victim. Whatever your inner stories are, when we buy into those, they are inauthentic. They're always leading us away from just the state we would be in if those thoughts were not there, which would be our authentic state. The enlightened state, indeed. And the reason we have these thoughts, which lead away from truth, if you like, is because we are, in terms of nature, a species of domesticated primates. We have domesticated ourselves as a species. When we are infants, we are conditioned, trained, taught how to get along in society. So when you are taught how to behave, naturally you have to give up one type of behaviour, throwing tantrums every 5 minutes, say, for making cups of tea for your mum or whatever, right? You have to switch, you have to learn how to get along with people. Because of course as an untrained infant, you think only about yourself and what you want, really, and what's good for you. And in a way, unconsciously, we are still the same, but we know the value of getting along with other people better. There seems to be a lot of traffic around all of a sudden. It's been quiet all morning, but anyway. What's interesting about this conditioning and the inner speech is that it carries on even though as adults we really don't particularly need it anymore for conditioning purposes. As an infant or as a child, you will speak to yourself and train yourself how to behave and how to get along with people around you and how to get what you want and how to manipulate and so on. But as adults who are watching this video now, we know all that. I mean, I know there are some crazy people who don't. I'm talking about mainstream humans, okay? There are always going to be exceptions and difficult cases. But since enlightenment is about being what you are, when you are thinking about things, stories, those stories are always trying to drive you to be what you are not at the moment. So they're always driving you away from enlightenment. So whenever you are trying, in your verbal mind, trying to be, or telling yourself stories about what you are, you're looking in the wrong direction, automatically. We tend to get sucked into these thoughts. I mean, most of us think that we are persons having experiences. I am a person having an experience. That's actually wrong, because the person is just another experience. You can listen to some of the other Enlightenment speakers online, and they'll tell you the same thing. There's lots of them. Lisa Cairns, Gangaji, Muji, Adyashanti, Rupert Spiro, or you name it, there's lots of them out there. When you dig down to what they're saying, it is about learning to disengage from the verbal mind, ultimately, so that you can just be who you are. And don't worry, you're not going to suddenly become an axe murderer or something, because you know how to behave already. Your body is well conditioned. So you don't need all the thoughts berating you and depressing you and all the rest of it that they do, and forcing you to be a success and telling you how important it is. And I mean, we can look at the world and see what our dreams of success are doing to it. Humanity tends to come up with big stories and always assumes that they are magic bullets that are going to fix everything, and of course there are no magic bullets, and they break everything. We need to do things in moderation, not in extremes. So, what do we do about this verbal mind? Because when we're thinking stuff, we do get sucked into it, totally, and we do think that we are thinking these thoughts. But those thoughts are not a person. As such, they are not... Well, they're a personality, they are a person of sorts, but they are not the real you. Those thoughts cannot look out of your eyes to see the world or listen to what's happening. They're just thoughts. They're external to you. You are the awareness that is aware of the thoughts, that is aware of what you're seeing. Awareness always involves being aware of something. But to separate out from the thoughts, bring your attention to the fact of awareness rather than the thoughts. Just pull back a little bit to separate the awareness and the thoughts, so that you can tell, oh, I'm aware of these thoughts. You're immediately a bit disengaged from the thoughts, you're not sucked in. Just do that a lot, and the thoughts will gradually lose their heat, their power, and you'll be in state a lot more, and you will start to see fairly quickly that the thoughts are not authentic. They're just stories. Childish stories in most cases that you don't need. You use the thoughts as a tool for, thinking about some issue that has to be sorted out or whatever, the practical way to deal with something. But we humans habitually misuse those thoughts now. They were useful as infants for getting us conditioned, domesticating us, but they should have been dropped after they'd done their job. And as a species, we've not learned that. So now's the time. You are the awareness. So you'll probably keep noticing you're thinking about stuff. Oh, I'm thinking about stuff. As soon as you do, you're out. You're in state, as it were. You're out of the thoughts. You've not gone. You've stepped out of being sucked in, I suppose. And try and do that as much as possible. And you'll notice when you're telling yourself stories, even if you think those stories are true. I wouldn't bet on it, because apart from anything else, these stories we tell ourselves are selective. There are millions of events and things that have happened in our lives, so we have a few choice examples that we tend to focus on. So they're not unbiased. They're all about conditioning us to survive as children in a world where we have no control, or very little. They did their job. We're here. And now they're largely redundant. I won't say 100% redundant. There are times, when maybe it's going to be useful. But you need to be choosing constantly, consciously, maybe constantly, but consciously, whether to use them or not, and not just get sucked in out of habit. I think the reason we habitually make the mistake of assuming that our thoughts are ourselves is because when we are children and we are teaching ourselves these thoughts that our parents and guardians and media people and all the rest have given us, is that they become habits. At first we have to rehearse them and practice and so on, but once they become habits, they become unconscious. We don't consciously apply the thoughts the way we did in the beginning. It just becomes a fast habit. Bang, the reaction is instant. We have to respond to something, bang, we adopt our I'm at work hat, whatever it is, right, and behave accordingly. And those tools are useful, but they can be used consciously, rather than are being sucked in unconsciously. So, whenever you're thinking about stories, you are being inauthentic, and it's pulling you away from who you are. Just separate out, be the awareness, and you can decide how to behave without all that. I think that's it. Any questions, any comments? Let me know. Bye for now.